Before there were maps, there were two worlds. The world you know, and the shining realm of Kaf, hidden just beyond it. A kingdom of fairies and giants and magic. On the night he was born, an emperor 1,000 miles away woke from a dream. A black crow that stole his crown, and a bright hawk that flew out of the west to win it back. And the wise men said, "That hawk is a child, and he will shake the thrones of the world." That same night, the fairies of Kaf carried the sleeping baby across the sky. They blessed him, and they touched his eyes, so that nothing hidden could ever hide from him again. His name was Hamza. He would become the bravest champion the world had ever seen. Strong as a lion, a warrior against 100 armies, a prince who lost his heart to a princess, and at his side, the cleverest trickster who ever lived. Amar, a thief of 1,000 disguises, and the truest friend a hero ever had. Together, they crossed burning deserts and enchanted mountains. They faced sorcerers and giants and dragons and the demon armies of Kaf. They saw wonders no eye had ever seen. Thrones that flew, cities of gold, gardens that bloomed in the dark, courage, magic, love, and laughter. One of the greatest stories ever told, carried for 1,000 years. And now, it is yours. This is the Dastan of Amir Hamza. But his murders travelled by Pigeon. And this is the story of the fastest bird in all of Persia, and of the one man alive who ever dared to argue with it. Now the Emir had ridden into Egypt to collect the empire's tribute, and Egypt met him with open gates, feasts, music, garlands in the streets, and wine. But the wine was drugged, and Hamza and faithful Adi and the whole of the advance party woke in chains at the bottom of a dry and ancient well, the pit of Joseph, the old prison of that land where the light of day comes down only as far as a man's memory of it. But the king of Egypt was a coward. He would not kill an emperor's champion without the emperor's word. So he wrote out his request, and he tied it to a pigeon's leg, and he loosed it toward the throne of the world. And in Ctesiphon, at the roost above the palace, that letter fell into the hands of Baktak like rain into a drought. His whole life had waited for this scrap of paper. But even Baktak knew that before the deed was done, the court must be swept clean of anyone who might avenge it. So he laid a feast for Landhar, the giant of India, and for Bahram, and for Mukbil the faithful. And he had learned this, Baktak, from watching Amar all these years. Do not poison the plan, poison the guests. Mukbil, suspicious over his own cup, rose and staggered for the door and fell before he reached it. Landhar woke in shackles forged for an elephant, and Buzurjmer, the old vizier, a prisoner now in all but name, watched under lowered lids. And as they carried Mukbil past, he pressed into his hand the antidote and the errand in a single motion. "The pigeon flies at dawn," he whispered, "and Hamza's death rides in its anklet. No horse on earth can outrun it, so fetch me the man who can." Dawn came. On the roost tower, Baktak took the bird in his 2 hands and lifted it to the sky, and a voice at his very elbow said pleasantly, "I'll be needing that back." Baktak fainted dead away into the arms of his attendants, and Amar ran. Oh, children, this was the race. The pigeon, a grey dash, flung across the roof of the world, and beneath it, Amar, on legs that Kizza himself had blessed long years before, eating the miles as a fire eats dry grass. And ahead of them both, Mukbil, sent on a swift camel, 140 miles gone before the camel dropped dead of the poisoned grass along the road, and Mukbil walking on, his feet bleeding, until he, too, fell beneath a lonely tree. And Amar reached him there, and there was no time for weeping. "Get up," he said. "Get on my back. You're the arrow now." And so they became one creature. Mukbil riding upon Amar's shoulders, his bow drawn out over Amar's head, the two of them a single centaur of vengeance closing on the skyline of Egypt. The pigeon dipped toward the fortress gates, and Mukbil's arrow took it out of the empty air and dropped it into the moat below. Amar waded in and fished out the bird, and the letter both. He read the death warrant through once. Then he folded it away into his zambil, his bottomless bag, for that paper was evidence now, and Amar never threw evidence away. And then with great ceremony he plucked the pigeon and cooked it, and made a fine kabob of it, and fed every bite to the exhausted Mukbil. "State secrets, brother," he said, "best swallowed." Now Egypt still held Hamza in the pit, so Amar went into that city by night, wearing 3 disguises one over another, a traveller, then a merchant, then a ragged beggar. And at each turn he shed a skin and left his pursuers grasping at the last one, and allies gathered around that beggar like iron filings to a lodestone, an old seller of kebabs, Mukbil himself, and most precious of all, Zura, the king of Egypt's own daughter, who knew the way to the pit, and who despised what her father had become. And at the well's mouth, a guard who had turned in the night, his heart changed by a dream, cleared the sentries away. Down the lasso into the dark went Amar, and even there, at the bottom of the world, he could not resist one last trick, announcing himself to the prisoners as the royal executioner, come down especially and only for Adi. And Adi's outraged howling echoing up the shaft was the very thing that told Hamza, laughing in his chains, exactly who had come for them. "God is great!" cried the Amir, and the shackles tore from him like cobwebs. For what the blessing of Adam has freed, no pit can hold. Up into the night air they climbed, the Amir loose, the king of Egypt dragged squealing from his hiding place, his throne forfeit, and his daughter, Zura, honoured and promised in marriage to Mukbil. For the arrow that had saved them all had earned itself a princess. But the warrant, with the emperor's own seal upon it, had gone north in Amar's bag, and when it fell upon the court of Ctesiphon, it landed like a dropped mirror. The emperor blustered, Buzurg-Mer said nothing, and said it very loudly. And in the women's palace of Persia, Mihr-Nigar stopped waiting, for she had waited long enough, and with her household, by the arranging of Amar, and under her mother's carefully turned away eyes, the princess of Persia walked out of her father's house on her own 2 feet, not stolen, not carried, but choosing. Veil up, eyes forward, and into the camp of Hamza. "You keep collecting my father's debts," she said to him at the edge of the camp. "I have come to stop being one of them." And now the empire could answer only with war, and with no more masks. So the court sent its handsomest sword, Jopin Kaus, and in single combat, Hamza unhorsed him in 4 strokes, and Jopin knelt, and swore himself a convert, and was believed, and was trusted, and was set free. For that was Hamza's pattern, children, to spare the beaten man. Remember that pattern, for this is the night it was betrayed. By midnight, Jopin's 70,000 fell upon the sleeping camp. Seth of Yemen and his 4,000 bought the tents their few minutes with their lives. And Hamza, no armour upon him, riding his black horse bareback, carved the darkness open. But in the press a sword found his head, and the blood ran down into his eyes. And the last that his men saw of him was the great black horse, black constellation, bearing its slumping rider away, away, past the ring of torchlight, into the dark beyond. By dawn, 60,000 of the enemy lay dead, and the field was searched corpse by corpse, and there was no Amir among them, and grief spread out in rings, through the camp, to Mecca, where Abdul Muttalib bowed beneath it, to Adi, weeping over the report, to Mihanigar, with the ring upon her finger and no hand left to send it to. Only Amar would put on no mourning clothes, and he held to one thread of reason. The black horse hasn't come home, he said. A horse with an empty saddle comes home, so he is alive somewhere. Mukbil, hold the fort, guard her, and I will go and argue with the whole wide world until it gives him back. So they searched the earth for him, children, and that was their error, for the earth had never owned him. 2 realms had laid a claim upon Hamza since his 7th night in the cradle, and now the other one, the hidden one, had come to call in its loan. Sleep now, the lamp burns low, and tomorrow I will tell you where the black horse carried him, and what was waiting in the mountains that no map has ever named.